Welcome to yet again another episode of what is this? Is week 5? Sorry, for us ASU fans, we've played one game over here, but week 5, good a game this week. We are playing UCLA, and we got Jack here. We're doing a little crossover episode for Dash Sports here, and Jack's he's a UCLA expert, so we're going to talk a lot of things football today. We're going to talk about the quarterback matchup coming up. Two of the better quarterbacks in the Pac-12. Probably top 4 quarterbacks. Yeah, I know you got into it with DTR earlier in the season, but we can talk about that. We're going to talk about ASU's key suspensions, and then one of their DBs declaring for the draft. And then what does ASU have to do to win? They haven't played, and what does UCLA have to do? They might not even have their best quarterback. So Jack, we're going to kick right into it. Jayden Daniels looking to bounce back from that week 1 loss at USC, and he played okay, but, I felt like I was left with more question marks than I had answers after that game. And, 3 weeks of not playing football doesn't help that. If UCLA, let's say they do get DTR back this game, what are you expecting from this matchup?
I mean, if DTR comes back, this might be a very close battle between 2 great quarterbacks. Honestly, 2 of the better quarterbacks in the conference, like you said. My co-host Sam at Bruin Dash doesn't really believe in Jayden Daniels. He doesn't believe in the hype. And if you looked at just his performance against USC, you can understand that. He was throwing under 50% for the game, but he's a dual threat quarterback. He makes plays with his legs, and the same could be said for DTR. While he's been very inconsistent and has a lot of turnovers, and that's caused the Bruins a lot of problem, DTR is a playmaker out there. He is the guy that will rack up 40 points in a couple quarters, or he's going to throw the ball away 20 times. You know what? If you're going to go big or going to go home, you might as well ride with DTR. Now, he's been out for the past 2 weeks because of COVID protocols. He's had to sit out because of contact tracing. They've had Chase Griffin come back. If Chase Griffin is the guy that you're rolling with, it will be a very defensive battle. If DTR is there, we might see some dynamic offenses. I don't know about a bunch of points because these guys, while they're great out there and while they can make a lot of plays with their legs and with their big arms, they're not the best scorers in the world. They're a little inconsistent out there. What are you seeing from Jayden Daniels? I mean, he's had 3-4 weeks off now to really just mull over that loss.
So to kind of talk about your co-host Sam's opinion on him, I really truly think as of right now he's probably not a first rounder. I think he's going to be, and I think obviously he's not eligible to get drafted this year. But as an ASU fan, it's hard to justify him to outside people because if you look at his stat sheet, he's not really, jumping out in, passes completed per game, yards, or, he doesn't really throw for 4 touchdowns a game ever because 2 reasons. I mean, Herm Edwards is a game manager. He doesn't like throwing the ball downfield, especially, we've only had 1 game, but this year we lost, we've had 2 wide receivers go in the first round the last 2 years. So, we kind of lost 2 of our better playmakers, and Jayden Daniels is having to step up as that number 1 guy. So, his numbers were not great in the air at all against USC. But if you watch that game, everyone knows ASU should have won that game. They're up 13 with a minute 50 or whatever to go, or 4 minutes to go, and they lost. But Jayden Daniels is the reason that they were so comfortably ahead for that long. Some of his runs, on just 3rd and 11, he can get it 12 yards and then get out of bounds. And it's just, those are backbreaking plays, especially for college defenses, that aren't as disciplined, as the NFL or stuff like that. And when you're missing a lot of receivers and playmakers, we're playing three freshman wide receivers, and, only 1 receiver on our team has had 10 Division I catches. So you really need someone like Jayden Daniels, and the stats are not going to pop out in the air this year. I really don't think they are. But when you watch this game, that wow, he is the best player on that team, and he is a difference maker on these big plays. And then lastly, he doesn't turn the ball over. And I think that's a huge thing, is he really doesn't throw that many interceptions. I want to say he had 2 or 3 in his freshman year. And, he keeps the ball on the offense, and we really don't go 3 and out that much. And it's, that's something that makes a difference. You get your defense a break, and it's little things watching the game that you notice. And then on DTR shortly, we saw him murder us last year on the field. And my prediction was actually ASU, if they played all 6 games, was going to go 5-1 with a loss to UCLA because we do not do well against athletic quarterbacks.
Yeah, and UCLA doesn't either. That's a big thing. I mean, when there was Khalil Tate at Arizona for a while, that he seemed like he came in every single year and just ripped us apart.
Yeah.
Luckily, this year haven't really had to face that. UCLA's been pretty lucky with quarterbacks. I mean, we faced Sam Noyer week 1, and he tore us apart, even though he was a former safety. Week 2, Chase Garbers couldn't do anything. Week 4, Grant Gunnell went out really early, so we got to face the backup. Tyler Shuck did all right against us with Oregon, but I mean, that was supposed to be the number 11 team in the nation, and UCLA only lost by 3 points. So no matter who is under center for UCLA, they're going to have a decent offense. You've got weapons all around. Demetric Felton is probably one of the best running backs in the league, and definitely the best receiving back in the league. You've got experience. You've got a mix of experience and athleticism out on the outside. You've got a couple of great running backs behind Demetric Felton. Offensive line has been playing amazing. There's only been 3 sacks this entire season for UCLA quarterbacks, which after watching last year and the year before, DTR always seemed like he was getting hurt because
he's running for his life out there.
always running for his life, no matter what. When you go back and watch the footage from last year, there are some plays, even in the Washington State game, which every UCLA fan thinks is one of the greatest comebacks of all time, that and the Texas A&M game. DTR and Demetric Felton put the team on their back, but early on in the game, they were looking really bad. There's one play where the offensive line completely breaks down. DTR has to run backwards about 10 yards and chuck it, and he throws an interception. So he's matured in that way, at least through the first 2 games he played. Who knows if these 2 weeks have helped him revert back to the form he saw earlier this season, or if he reverted all the way back to the form he saw in his freshman and sophomore year. But at least the offensive line is keeping him up, and that is the biggest key for them. Is if they don't allow sacks, they're going to make plays. They're going to, I mean, last week against Arizona, there were a lot of 3-and-outs, especially in the third quarter. It seemed like nothing get going. But at least they're giving yourself a chance to compete.
Yeah, and I think something for ASU, we're going to talk about the suspensions later, but, that aside, it's like, what did they have to play for at this point? And, they're going to play 2 more games. And, they'll show up for the Territorial Cup against Arizona next week because that's, always a heated game. But, my question for ASU is like, outside of, maybe 2 or 3 players, wanting to go pro, there's not a whole lot of, elite level senior year players that are, considered first 2-3 round picks anymore. N'Keal Harry and Brandon Ayuk are gone. So there's really, outside of putting, some tape on film, I really am questioning what this ASU team's motive is going to be. And, we kind of saw Cal after they lost their first game due to COVID. Not lost, sorry. They lost the opportunity to play their game because of COVID. But, the next week they showed up against you guys. And, DTR looked great, and you guys pretty much flattened them. That was week 2, correct? I believe that was Cal's first game. And I have that. ASU's now missed 3 games. I don't know if any other team in the country's missed 3 weeks in a row because of COVID. ASU, the rumors were the entire side of the ball, like of defense, got it. But ASU doesn't release their numbers of like how many people have COVID or, who got it. They don't release names. So outside of Herm Edwards, you really don't know, if players are going to be coming back healthy, if they're going to be coming back, in shape and, even with a motive to play. And COVID cancellations aside, this team had so many question marks after week 1. If they would have won week 1, I think there would have been a lot more, not answers, but you kind of think what you have going forward. Where after that loss, you're just like, all right, we had some guys play well, but where did all this go wrong? And instead of looking at these positives, you're kind of looking at a team that's scratching their head. And I think that's exactly what ASU is going to be doing. But that being said, if there's one coach in the entire NCAA that I want to motivate a team to get up for a game, it's Herm Edwards.
Yeah, Herm Edwards, great coach. When you think of Chip Kelly over on the UCLA side, you're not really thinking of a player's coach or a guy that's very friendly with the media, but you're thinking of a guy that's he designed that blur offense at Oregon, and he transitioned pretty well into the NFL until things started to fall apart. First couple years here at UCLA, he tried to run a pro-style offense, but it seems like he's really transitioning that offense to be more of a spread thing. He ran a lot of triple option, especially when Chase Griffin came in. When you've got a 5'11" quarterback that's weighing about 185 pounds, you're not going to try to have him throw the ball deep every single time out there. Run the triple option, run the spread offense, and that's what he's been doing. And even with the loss to Oregon, this team looked good. This offense looked good. It looked like they had something going for them. Even in the Colorado game, the second half was completely different. They looked like a different team. It seemed like Chip Kelly realized, why am I trying to fit these dual threat quarterbacks into this pro-style offense when it's clearly not working? Which it would have been great if he had that epiphany last year when the team went 4-8, or went 3-9 or 4-8 in the half seasons. But he's finally turned things around. He has the chance to go over 500 for the first time at UCLA, and if he continues with this new offense, Arizona State's defense will be in trouble because, I mean, as you saw in week 1, they did not look up to speed.
Yeah, and that's going to be our next point of topic is, ASU had 2 DBs not only get suspended indefinitely, so basically the rest of the year, considering there's only 2 games now, but, Jack Jones just left and went for the NFL draft. He committed for the NFL draft. So, this is going to be interesting for this game. We're transitioning. We're talking about, Chip Kelly is kind of given the keys of the offense. He's finally kind of figuring out how to drive the car, And now ASU, Jack Jones was arguably their best player in week 1. I mean, outside of, maybe Jaden Daniels or one of the running backs. But Jack Jones was playing about as good a defense as you can play on Amon-Ra St. Brown. So, that's a big loss. And then Ashari Crosswell was a young guy. He played fantastic, one of their better defenders last year. And, we don't really know what it is. The report was, I don't think they broke the law and did anything wrong. I think it was team conduct. But, it's interesting. We're going to see some new faces. And, ASU didn't really have that great of a secondary to begin with. And they probably just lost 2 of their, if not their 2 best, 2 of their 3 best secondary players. So, it's going to be scary to see what DTR can do to this defense. And, I challenged ASU before week 1, kind of find your identity of what your defense is. And I wanted them to be, a team that rushed the passer and forced turnovers. That might come with getting beat in the secondary, but, against a Chip Kelly team, you kind of need to make these quarterbacks not comfortable. I know a lot of them are first read, not necessarily first read, but they look for their first read. And that's a lot of times, if you can get to them after that, if the first read's closed, then, the Chip Kelly offense is then in a scramble mode. And I think that's something that's going to be key for ASU is, trying to make the ball out of the quarterback's hands quick. Whoever's playing quarterback, whether it's DTR or Chase Griffin, it's going to be key for ASU to, just not put pressure on these DBs that are going to be coming in not fresh after 3 weeks of not playing and not practicing, and then to expect them to go play man coverage for, 7 to 10 seconds on a play if you get a clean pocket, because ASU did not rush Keaton Slovis all that well, and they still practically held him to 13 points for 55 minutes of that game. So it's going to be interesting. ASU's defense was so great and then choked at the end. It really was a choke. And so what team is going to show up? And offense, defense, and who cares? We talked about that. That's going to be something that these new guys getting a new look, they might be playing better than, some of these starters that, don't really care and checked out for the season. Obviously, the starters are more talented, but it's going to be something to watch just with new faces in the secondary, especially, when UCLA's best player is going to be DTR if he plays.
Yeah, and the only problem with trying to rush DTR is if he gets out of the pocket, he's gone. And especially if you're not having experienced DBs back there, he might break off a 60-yard run like he had against Colorado. He had a couple big runs against Cal too, a couple great hurdles that, man, it looked like he was in a high school track meet at the time. But if you really can rattle him, he is done for a while. You saw that a lot last year. The first game of the season in Cincinnati, when he knew he was coming in as the starter, he wasn't in a quarterback competition anymore. Chip Kelly trusted him as the starter, and his team was driving, and all of a sudden Cincinnati forces a fumble. He doesn't look the same the rest of the game. He doesn't really look the same the rest of the season. Early in the Colorado game, he looked rattled. But, if he calms down, stays composed, that will be a tough matchup for Arizona State. It's really going to come down to your front 7 containing both him and Demetric Felton. If they can't contain those 2 and they get the run game going, all of a sudden those play actions are going to result in some deep bombs. We saw that Greg Dulcich, even though he's a tight end, has some big playability. And if your DBs are not ready for that, they're going to get burned. Now, if it's Chase Griffin, I don't know how much Chip Kelly trusts him to throw the ball deep. He hasn't really had that opportunity. He's only thrown 2 touchdowns through the 2 games, and one of them was, a little dink pass to Brenton Brown, who ran it in the rest of the way himself. If it is DTR, you're going to have to watch out for that. Now, on the other side, UCLA's defense has been doing exactly what you want ASU's defense to do. Get after the quarterback, cause some disruption back there. They're in the top 30, I believe, in sacks and possibly top 10 in tackles for loss on the season in the entire nation, which after last year's team looked awful, especially on the defensive unit. This is a real exciting thing for UCLA fans to see. Yes, they're going to get burned a lot. A lot of it has come on.
Refreshing to hear.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Tyler Shuck and Oregon had a couple of big passes, but you know what? It's still exciting to watch, and it still causes a lot of disruption back there. If you can get into these guys' heads, if you can really get them out of their game, make them change up their game plan, that's a win for you. And I don't know how much of this has to do with the defensive coordinator, because we've talked in the past how his teams haven't been very good, but they got a new defensive backs coordinator in Brian Norwood after the team finished second to last in the nation in passing yards per game allowed, and now they're a top 60 unit in that category. And that's amazing to see. That's one little difference that has caused this huge ripple effect. And yeah, still 2-2. It's not the best record, but you're giving yourself a chance to compete in every single game. And shutting down Jaden Daniels has to be key number 1, 2, and 3 for this defense.
And I think this game is, so many different aspects of it. ASU's only second game, of the season. And then something I'm interested about is, Chip Kelly versus Herm Edwards, two completely different, kind of philosophical coaches where, Herm Edwards is going to run the ball and he's going to try to make that defense tired. I don't think he's going to try to win the game on defense. I think he's going to try to limit the amount of possessions UCLA gets. And I think a key to ASU is, they're also going to get burned with 2 new people in the secondary and, a defense that was, although played well against, first week Keaton Slovis, it really wasn't all that great. It wasn't going to be their strong suit to start with. So I want to see how many 3-and-outs they can force UCLA. Because, Chip Kelly, when things are going wrong with the Eagles, was that the defense was on the field for 45 minutes of the game. And, that's that's an issue. You're not going to win games when that's happening. And I think that's what Herm Edwards is going to try to do. I think we have 2 new running backs and, DeMonte Trayanum and Rashad White, and they both looked fantastic. He's, probably some of our best weapons because our number 1 receiver, Frank Darby, who was supposed to be really our only receiver this year, he got hurt in the first quarter. So, ASU wasn't left with a whole lot of options. And these 2 running backs were both fantastic in the run game and in the pass game. So I think we're going to see a lot of read option, runs and just ASU pounding the rock to really try to make that defense tired. And, they might be losing by, 7 to 10 points, but look to see, if this is true, if they are losing, how they recover in the third quarter, if they truly are committed to running the ball, because, Herm Edwards plays the long game. And we've had 2 games against Michigan State where we feel like we could have blown them out and we were outplaying them, but Herm Edwards just somehow runs the ball and gets a field goal with 10 seconds left to win the game every time. And it drives you as a fan crazy, but when you win the games, you win the games. And, as Herm Edwards says, you play to win the game. So, sorry, I just bumped myself. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because there's just so many different aspects, but I'm curious to see how Chip Kelly wants to attack this team. I don't think ASU's even announced who these 2 starting DBs are for, they're going to replace them. So there's a lot of ways Chip Kelly can attack, and I don't think running the ball is going to be it because ASU's, has a pretty good stout run defense. So I'm expecting a lot of quick passes to get it out quick and not really allow DTR or Griffin to throw those interceptions and really change the game.
Yeah, and that's huge. That would be a huge thing for ASU. Coming out of the locker room, first quarter, third quarter, UCLA is horrible. They've been outscored this year. They've not been looking good. I don't know what's happening in the locker room there, but Chip Kelly needs to change up the vibe. Something's happening. But in the second and fourth quarter is where UCLA is really starting to shine. So like you said, ASU might try to run the ball at the end of the game. Well, last week against Arizona, the third quarter, UCLA was going 3-and-out, 3-and-out, 3-and-out over and over again. Even if they got 1 first down, it's like that it would immediately stall right there. No turnovers, but it was just you're just punting it away over and over and over again. And it was really on the defense to stop the Arizona offense, and they did that time and time again. Yes, it got to 2010, but then once Arizona had a couple of final drives to try to put some kind of comeback in, they threw the ball away twice, and UCLA was able to get a couple of interceptions, which is huge for this team. They're not great at forcing turnovers, but whenever they do get a turnover, it's a huge momentum builder. This fourth quarter will be huge. UCLA has given up 3 points in the fourth quarter this entire season through 4 games. If this defense can do the same, I think it's a UCLA win. If not, then ASU will probably pull away.
Yeah, I mean, we can jump over to it. We're actually going to give our game predictions, special for all you listeners out there. So, comment in the chat who you think is going to win this game. But, what do you think, the big question is what ASU team shows up after, only playing one game. But, give me your prediction. What do you think the score is? Who wins?
I'm thinking this is a defensive battle. I'm thinking the offenses are going to come out and struggle. If DTR is cleared to play, he probably would have come back about Wednesday or Thursday. That's not a lot of time to practice and get ready for this ASU team. Chase Griffin hasn't really convinced us too much that he's going to be a lights-out quarterback. Now, he's a good game manager. He holds onto the ball decently well against Arizona. He does the same against Arizona State. He gives the Bruins a chance. But I'm really looking at both defenses to step up and prove themselves. ASU is going to be really, really rusty on the offensive side of the ball. If you can't have a few weeks out and then come out and expect to light up the scoreboard, that's just not realistic. So if I had to give a prediction, it'd be 21-17 UCLA. Defensive battle decided in the fourth quarter. UCLA's defense makes a pick or a strip really late in the game to ice it. What about you?
I even while you were talking, I'm listening to your points, trying to make up my mind, because we've seen a lot of teams that have had games canceled due to COVID, and then they come back out and, just kind of lay an egg. And, with the Jaden Daniels and Herm Edwards team, I don't really see ASU laying an egg per se, but it's so hard to gauge. I think ASU is going to run the ball 65 to maybe 70% of the time to try to keep, that defense and, the two DBs off the field, because I think that's going to play a big difference into this game if they can attack that side of the ball and, just get a lot of big plays downfield, because you can have a 12-play drive, 7 points, but they could also have a one-play 75-yard drive, and those are killer. And so I think it's going to be a little higher scoring, but I think ASU is going to do a majority of the game running the ball and keeping time of possession. So I'm going to give you 42-38 ASU wins. I think it's going to be a little higher scoring, but I don't think the defenses are going to play all that bad. I think the big plays are going to come from UCLA when, to keep the game close. And I think ASU is just going to, run the ball and they really look for ASU to be in 3rd down and 10, 3rd down and 15, 3rd and 8, because they never do that. That means they either threw the ball on 1st down or ran the ball and, didn't get any yards. And they don't do that a whole lot. When they're in 3rd down, they're in 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and, very manageable situations where they can still run or throw the ball. And you really keep the defense guessing. And I think that's what ASU and under Herm Edwards, not just this season, has been so good at, of, being in manageable 3rd downs, but that comes at the same time of not throwing the ball downfield that much. And, when you don't throw the ball downfield, you're not going to score 50-yard touchdowns. So, with no Brandon Ayuk and no N'Keal Harry, I think ASU is going to run the ball heavy, as we did against USC until, we really got that run, I believe, that lead by running the ball. I think it was 18 straight times in the second half against USC, and on 3 different drives, we ran it 18 straight times. And the only time we didn't was an extra point. That was the only run play we didn't run. So, I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And that's what really was successful for ASU against USC.
Yeah. And if you had to look at one thing in this game to try to decide who is going to come out the winner, it's going to be the turnover differential.
Absolutely.
I know you said ASU doesn't turn the ball over very much, and that's huge for Jaden Daniels. If UCLA throws the ball away a couple early times, even in week 1 against Colorado, they had 4 turnovers. DTR had a fumble and an interception. Even Demetric Felon had a fumble. We had a fumble on a punt return. Those are huge. Those are momentum killers. I think UCLA has given up 49 points this year just off of turnovers, which is unacceptable. Most of those are coming from within the UCLA 25-yard line. And yes, while I raved about this defense, and this defense has been very good, they don't give up a lot of yards, they still aren't that great as a scoring defense because their offense puts them in such vulnerable positions. Arizona's only touchdown last week came when Chip Kelly decided to go for it on 4th and 1 about his own 30-yard line, and Chase Griffin got stuffed in the backfield. That you can't do that to your defense over and over in this game. So if Arizona State causes a lot of turnovers, causes a lot of disruptions, and UCLA decides to go for it on 4th down, doesn't make it quite a few times, it's going to put a lot of strain on this defense. They've been playing very well, but you can't expect them to bail you out every single time, because as we've seen against Oregon, the game was decided by 3 points, and 7 of those Oregon points were last-second interception to end the first half. Which
we'll take one of those this game too.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone would love those. I applaud Chip Kelly for his bravery. I applaud him for going bold. You're at the number 11 team in the nation. You're up in Autzen. You're up in Eugene. You've got a redshirt freshman starting quarterback in this very first career game. Why not take a chance? But that's a killer. And if you're not ready to have your offense control the ball and control time of possession, you're going to kill your defense eventually over the course of the season. Maybe it doesn't happen in this ASU game. Maybe it doesn't happen until the week 7 game that's to be decided. But at some point, it's going to break down, and that's not a winning formula.
And I think for UCLA, in my opinion, the key is going to be Demetrius Felton because, if he can run the ball and ASU has to commit to that run game, it's going to be, wide open for, the secondary that's not very experienced. So I think Felton's going to be the big thing of, kind of not carrying the offense, but, kind of opening the door for this offense to be full throttle if Chase Griffin is starting. So, DTR is obviously the best playmaker on that team. And he showed that last year against ASU when, ASU couldn't stop anything he did, whether it was running, walking, just throw it, they couldn't do it. I want to say he almost had 500 total yards in that game against ASU. Now it was like 220 rushing yards too. So, it's tough if that happens, you're not going to win games. But, I look for Felton if UCLA wants to win, get over that 100-yard mark to really allow Chase Griffin to open the offense and, find the receivers downfield.
Yeah, Felton will get his touches no matter what. Chip Kelly relies on his number one running back all the time. We saw it for the past couple of years with Joshua Kelly, ended up going to the NFL, and now it's Demetrius Felton, which they're very different running backs. Demetrius Felton is a lot more of a speed back, whereas Josh Kelly is a power back. But Demetrius Felton, if he gets over 150 yards, over 200 yards just in the offense, not even to count his kick returns if he does something special there, but just 200 yards on offense, and UCLA should be in a good position. If he gets slowed down, he came up a little bit limp at the end of the last week. I think they said it was probably a cramp, but they're not very honest with us all the time. If he's hampered in any way, this UCLA offense will struggle. If ASU is able to take him out of the game, is able to just nullify all of his effects, it's going to be a wash. There's no reason to think that UCLA would come back from Tempe with a win if Demetrius Felton doesn't have a big game.
All right, so give me your offensive and defensive players to look out for UCLA. For my ASU fans here that don't know a whole lot about your UCLA roster.
Offensively, I'm going to go with Brenton Brown, the backup running back. He's been pretty good. He's the power back. He's a change of pace from Demetrius Felton. He got almost 100 yards last week, got 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. So he's been doing really well. He's a grad transfer from Duke, so he brings over a lot of experience. That's a guy that you like to hand the ball to on short yardage situations to really punch the ball through. On defense, it's got to be Qwantrez Knight. This dude has come as a grad transfer again. Chip Kelly loves his grad transfers, and he's come over and really changed that defensive secondary. He's been making plays in the backfield. He's been getting sacks. He's been getting strip sacks. He's been getting fumble recoveries. He's been disrupting the ball all over the field. And if he performs again against Jaden Daniels, then it's going to be a big UCLA win. What about you?
Are you talking about for ASU players?
For sure.
So, offensively, this is kind of cheating, but we have 3 rookie freshman wide receivers. One of them didn't play all that much, but I looked at Johnny Wilson and LV Bunkley Shelton. It's a little tongue twister there, but they both got thrown at quite a bit once Frank Darby got hurt in week 1, and they really didn't do all that much at all. I want to say the leading receiver for ASU was Rashad White, and he's a running back, so. That's an issue. And these guys were getting thrown at a lot. They were open, but I don't know if it was, the big noon kickoff for them or, just first game jitters playing in the Coliseum. It's a big deal, but I'm looking for them to on offense, make a difference because Frank Darby should be back. Hopefully. I don't think he was seriously injured, but I think he's playing and, they're not going to have the number 1 DBs on him anymore. And then on the other side of the ball, Chase Lucas, he's our other starting DB. He's fantastic. He's graduating this year, so I don't know if he's going to come back due to COVID, but, on defense, he's going to be facing the number 1 receiver all night long because, Jack White's gone. So, he really needs to have a great game and give some relief to that secondary where they don't have to put, help over top because I think they're going to need some help on, with missing a starting safety and DB and corner. So, I look at Chase Lucas, the cornerback, and the 2 freshman wide receivers on offense. I think because Jaden Daniels, he's going to be one of those guys that he could have a great game, but he's going to get his no matter what. He's going to have probably at least 40 yards rush, probably close to 200 yards passing. It's just kind of his average game line. No matter how well, unless you're Utah last year, Utah absolutely they held us to like 13 yards total in the game. I swear.
Yeah, and we're about to run out of time here, but
Yeah.
last thing is that UCLA offensive line is going to be a huge factor in this game. You lost both your right guard and right tackle to transfer to the Big 12 and over the summer, and they look like they've gotten better instead of taking a step back. And Jake Byrne, the right tackle, was supposed to be an NFL draft pick, and you just replace him, and all of a sudden this offensive line looks like they're so cohesive, opening up gaps for both Demetric and DTR. If they have a big game out there, it is going to be quite an experience for them. I mean, obviously they haven't played as well on the road this year as they played at home. Maybe they just love Pasadena a little bit more than taking a plane, but expect them to turn up big in Tempe.
Yeah. Well, thank you everyone for watching. ASU UCLA tomorrow. Tomorrow, what time is it at again?
It's at 7:30 Pacific time, 8:30 Mountain time.
8:30 Arizona time, 7:30 California time. Make sure to check us out on social media at Dash Sports TV. We're on pretty much anything that's social media. We have an account for it. Make sure to go follow us. Make sure to follow Sports Pack 12 too. We're writing articles now for them. Check them out at Sports Pack 12 on Twitter to see weekly articles about your favorite school. Thank you guys and have a great week.